Two grandchildren. Good. Today. To make sure that that's what she He's the torch. He's the torch.
If he stands on one side of it, I can't see him. If he stands on the other side of it, Josh can't see him.
Okay.
The stage is much smaller than Washington High School stage. You didn't have to bring me a chair. Oh, you didn't.
Okay, right, so sound stage, right there.
He's got one right there.
And a Dutton Bradley, Cheeseman, Mark, Andy, Kim,
Cindy.
and Cindy, so 6.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Have you spread them out more? You got her on one end.
We don't have any. I'm just looking at it.
Thank you, Mark. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Matthew Cheeseman, and I am honored and blessed to serve this great community as your superintendent for Brooklyn County Schools. And I just want to say thank you so much for being here this evening. And I know we may have a few more come in as there's a heavy storm upon us. So if that's still the case when we're finished tonight, please be safe driving home. Heavy rain. Please be careful. With that, we're going to be here this evening trying to answer many of the questions regarding school reentry. We do have an opportunity where you'll be able to come up to the front and actually ask questions via the microphone so everyone in the room can hear it. But specifically, I just want to talk to you about where we are right now, what it looks like, what it sounds like, what it feels like, and just really give you an understanding of where we were to where we are and to where we may be moving forward, what we are in control of, what we think we're in control of, and what we're most likely not in control of in terms of decision making within Brooklyn County Schools. So I've asked a few people to join me tonight. Mr. Mark Doan on the far end, Dr. Marvin Bradley, Ms. Cindy Edwards, Ms. Andrea Lilly, and of course Ms. Kim Gibbs. All of them are expertise in a very specific area that may have greater knowledge than myself, so I will answer their expertise based on the questions at times. But specifically, let's start. So we have about 60 minutes, so I just want to walk through this with you. So first and foremost, I'm going to congratulate all of you in the room and just really say thank you. And I say that to you because not too many people have come out and thanked their families and thanked their parents and thanked their guardians and thanked anyone and everyone who suddenly had their lives turned upside down on March 14th when Governor Roy Cooper shut down all the school systems in North Carolina, really taking that safety precaution. But for us, just to give you true knowledge, we had about 45 minutes notice. It came through an email to superintendents. I was actually in the yard, so by the time I read it, I had about 20 minutes notice. But what I can tell you is at 4:30, he came to the podium. By 5 o'clock, I had 15 people in the office. By 7 o'clock that night, we had the state received all of our waivers in order to feed students the following week appropriately. And we started feeding on that Monday immediately. And even more so, by Wednesday of that week, we were full blown into the learning. So some of our teachers really became advocates for you at home who became teachers. And I don't want that to go unrecognized because you may find yourself in that predicament forward. But I think we're going to be a little bit more prepared to be able to help you with that. Because quite frankly, I don't think any school system was ready to have an immediate shutdown on the weekend and try to figure out what tools to give parents overnight. And so we're really trying to work on that behind the scenes now. So in short, we tried to really finish out the year, and we did our best to be able to be supportive with our students, with our families. And then, of course, we were told that we would hear an announcement sometime in May about what it might look like moving from phase 1 to phase 2, phase 2 to phase 3. So as I speak to you, I realize that we're not in control of that decision making, meaning that, especially for the community, all their phase decisions come from the governor. And even more so about what type of plan in terms of what you can run A, B, and C, that was designed through the governor's office, through DHHS and DPI. So we do have a lot of support that's above us, outside of us. Our health department here locally works with us. So we really try to gain an awful lot of knowledge in that regard. And so fast forward, we were really looking forward to a decision on July 1st from the governor's office in terms of whether we would be plan A, plan B, or plan C. That didn't roll out until almost July 14th. I think it was July 14th, if I remember correctly. And in that term, in that decision, it became July 14th. Now you can either be plan B or plan C. So I just want to pause right there and help everyone understand that every single Board of Education member, all 9, and everyone on this stage, and I would like to believe, every single employee of Beaufort County Schools want our children in school. And I think that's really important to know. We want our kids in school. It matters. We want our children in school, not just for the academics, but we want them there for the social and emotional development. And quite frankly, it creates normalcy in people's lives. And we want them in school. And when it's not in that normal phase at home and coming to school each and every day, well, that not only affects children, but it affects you as adults too. And I recognize that. But I do want you to understand that whether it's a 5-4 vote, a 6-3 vote, an 8-1 vote, a 9-1 or a 9-0 vote, every single board member wants kids in school. If and only if it's absolutely safe. And so that's where we are. And so when you look at safety inside of our school system, I would like you to look not just at students, but also to look at the adults. Because as your superintendent, my primary responsibility, long before we ever educate children, is to make sure that every single person is safe, or at least the best opportunities are put into place to make sure that everyone is safe. And so when you take those decisions and you magnify it even further, you talk about 115 public school entities, and the governor has the direct authority to roll out very specific plan opportunities that districts then can engage in. Well, it makes your circumstance a little bit limited in terms of what your choices are. And so you're going to hear me say a few times tonight the following phrases. And this is me just being honest with you. I'm going to look at you and say, I don't know. And you don't have to be okay with that. There are going to be times you ask me a question and I'm going to look at you and say, I don't know the answer yet. Or there are going to be times where you ask me a question and I'm going to say to you, we're going to do our very best. And there are going to be times when you look at me and ask me a question and I'm going to say, it wasn't our decision. But this is where we are right now. And so in short, on August 5th, which is next Wednesday, school starts for early college high school. And on August 10th, our employees for all other schools throughout the district return. And on August 17th, school will start for all other students in a remote learning setting. And that's going to last for 4 weeks. And within that time, we're still going to work very closely with Cindy and James Madsen, the health department. Our board is going to continue to review our plans and review our activities in the school district to see if we can get back into school on September 14th. All right, here, like my cell phone. So in short, let me give you just a little bit of context of what's going on around Beaufort County so you have an understanding. And I think it's really important to know this. And so Hyde County just declared remote for 9 weeks. Craven County is on Plan B with some staggered start and A-Day, B-Day, C-Day, D-Day. So not everybody goes to school 5 days a week. Pitt County is on Plan B, specifically, closer. Pitt County is on Plan B specifically with, 1 week on, 1 week off, not all, but remote. Washington County is on remote learning. Bertie County is on remote learning. Gates County is on remote learning. Camden's on remote. Currituck is on remote. Waiting to hear Dare's response, waiting to hear Quinlan's response. Edenton's on a hybrid. So why do I bring that up? Elizabeth City might likely be moving to remote, is what I'm being told. They haven't voted on that yet. But you have 15 school systems all in Region 1. There are 8 regions in the state of North Carolina. We're Region 1, we're the eastern portion of North Carolina, Northeast. And so specifically, we work with each other in terms of where our data is, what student support looks like, what professional support looks like. And so be mindful that in these decisions, I'm telling you that some of these other areas have gone remote. Carroll County has gone remote. Just so you understand that the board's decision was not made in isolation. It's not an outlier. As a matter of fact, it's extremely consistent with the rest of the region. And they put forth student safety. Now, what's different is that we're not waiting 9 weeks to make decisions. We're anticipating going back to school in 4 weeks, not 9, knowing that we want to try to get our students back in school. So please consider that. But what is it going to look like, sound like, and feel like? In 2 different spectrums, because now you're really dealing with 2 different plans. You're dealing with a remote learning plan of everybody, and then you're going to deal with a Plan B. And so that Plan B means that students would actually attend school in the school for 40% of the time. Maybe Monday, Tuesday, maybe Thursday, Friday. But everybody would go on to remote learning on Wednesday under Plan B. We really forecast that we could be possibly remote learning 100% of the time based off of the governor's decisions, based off of how people behave, based off of how much COVID response you have. And if you've noticed the trends, we're moving upward very fast. There were 36 new positive cases in Beaufort County alone yesterday. In terms of active cases, you're over 120. Doesn't sound like a lot, but you only have 44,000 residents in Beaufort County. And so considering, you have to think about what's the number that opens the school, what's the number that closes the school. And I can assure you that I've been on the phone with Jeff Coltrane from the governor's office in conferences like other superintendents. And there's not a number that's so definitive that says if you hit this threshold, this is what you're going to do. There's not a number because it looks different all across the state. Some may say 8% of your community, some may say 10% of your community, some might go 12. I've not heard anything higher than that. Usually around 10% is what I hear. I don't see it in writing. I've not been given an executive order for that. So the question is really, where's the matrix? I don't know. I'm still waiting for it. And I keep asking for it. So please be mindful of that as we look at you and say, we don't know. We don't know. We're waiting for that to come down to us. So opening up August 17th, it's remote. So first and foremost, behind the scenes, our teachers have been engaged and will be engaged as they arrive back to our schools in professional development to help them work through our remote setting. But specifically, we're trying to get devices to all of our children. And I do want to thank the Board of Education for allotting a nearly $300,000 expenditure most recently to acquire 1,068 hotspots to go back out to those children specifically who don't have connections at home. So we're being thoughtful and really trying hard in terms of reaching out to everyone. There may be cases that we're going to have to help students in terms of their connection, but in fact, our Board of Education made decisions over the last 21 days to make sure that we would have a device for every single child. And you may look at me and say, you know, my child doesn't learn through that device. But my question is can your child communicate through that device? And we are going to need you. And let me just stop there. We're going to need you. We're going to need you at any time of the day, meaning that I know your child will be technically on remote learning at home, following a schedule all day long. So if your child's typical class is at 8 in the morning, your child will be online at 8 in the morning, if you can do that, and we hope you can. If your child has an 11 o'clock class, like most do, your child will be online working with their teacher at 11 o'clock, if you can do that. If your child has a class at 1 o'clock after lunch, then you would be online at 1 o'clock, if you can do that. Now, the reason I say if you can do that is many of you have written me very nice messages of thought. And those messages always say, I have to work. What am I going to do? I don't know. I don't have a plan for each and every single family who has to work. I can't do that for you. But I have a plan for how we're going to try to educate our students. We have a plan, and we're hoping that you can help us with that in the next 4 weeks. And even more so, if COVID cases continue to rise, and for whatever reason, the authority above us puts out another executive order that says, hey, you're going to Plan C, we're all going to have to do this. And so we really need to just pause for a moment and just absolutely take a breath and realize this is our normal right now. This is our reality right now. This is the best circumstance that we believe that we can put together in front of students. And be mindful that not a single one of us have ever been educated on how to deal with a pandemic. Just to be quite honest, it's so new to all of us. And so the key part about this is, what does communication look like for you? Well, know that when your students are home, our employees are at work. It's the expectation that our teachers, our teacher assistants, our custodians, our nurses, our counselors, our maintenance team, transportation, whomever else, school nutrition especially, all of us are at work, meaning at the physical plant, at the physical school. So that means school is open for the adults. It's not open for the students. So last semester, I saw it firsthand. Our teachers worked almost 14 to 15 hours a day. Many of them, some more, some a little less, not a lot less, just a little less, maybe 12. But I literally saw them get online in the morning. I saw them love up their kids at lunch. I saw them love up their kids even at dinner time online. And I had firsthand experience of being a parent of a student in this system who will be on remote learning. Her teachers actually were online at 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock at night trying to help her with other kids in the classroom. Now, we're trying not to do that. We're trying to really set some type of precedent and schedule where our children will be in school, online, in this remote setting during school hours. It is so very important that at home, after school hours, that we enjoy life, that you enjoy family time. We believe some of you lost that, and I'm sorry for that. We believe that some of you lost that very family time that you enjoy when you read together, build puzzles together, play in the yard together, go out to eat together, watch movies together, or fall asleep together. We believe that you lost that time. And so we're trying to set a schedule. And as a parent myself, it was very hard if my daughter's teacher had to change her schedule in the middle of the week, meaning back in the spring, she was supposed to be on class Tuesday at 8, but I got an email Monday night that said I have to push the class to Friday. Well, then my world professionally flipped upside down, as yours would. So we're asking our teachers to stay on schedule. Stay on schedule all week. So what does that mean for you? let's say, for example, your child looks at you and says, it just didn't work for me today. I didn't understand this content. I didn't understand what he or she was asking me to do. You have the ability to call back to the school all day long. And if you say to me, hey, I can't call, I have a job, or I can't pick up the phone, can you send an email anytime, during the day, in the evening, overnight when you're awake because you're stressing as a parent like we do? Anytime. Communication will flow back to the school. But know that I've asked all of our employees from the time they get to work to the time they finish their job during the day is to make sure that they're connecting with you. Because our employees too are going to need their time back with their families, because many of our employees have children in school. And we need them to be that very mom and dad, or the custodial guardian, aunt, uncle, whoever it might be to the children. So this is going to be hard. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. It's going to be hard. And there are going to be times where your teachers look right at you and say, I don't know, but we're going to figure this out. But this time through, there's a greater expectation, and our teachers know this, and our TAs know this, that the quality of education coming into your child will have to be at a rigorous level. We don't want anyone falling behind. But our teachers behind the scenes, our team behind the scenes should be helping our teachers in terms of their own development, in terms of their capacity, in terms of the way the classes are organized. And Ms. Lilly may have an opportunity to talk a little bit about that tonight. So at home, specifically, I know this disrupts family. I know it does. And I'm sorry. It's the best opportunity that we can provide you right now in terms of safety. I can't say it any better than that. But moving forward, when our children come back in, it's going to be harder. It's going to be harder, and I need you to think through this for a moment. I'm going to ask you to help our students wear a mask for 6 hours, 7 hours. And they're going to have to talk through it. My own daughter looked at me and said, Daddy, am I going to need to wear a mask all day? I said, yes. I gave it to Dad, yes. And then 3 more miles down the highway, she looked at me and said, how am I going to eat? There's a lot of people taking a lot of things literally. And I looked at her and said, you take off your mask and eat, and then put it back on. She said, okay, I feel better. But kids don't understand it. So specifically, our adults will be allowed to wear face shields. So kids can see them talk, so they can learn how to enunciate words and letters. So they'll be able to hear them a little bit better. Because I know as the two of you ladies sit side by side, there may be a moment where one of you looks at each other and says, what did you say? And you're only like 6 inches apart, right? That's going to happen in classes. Will our kids be able to take off their masks? Sure they can. Get a mask break. Spread them out, let them take them off in a safe area, especially if they step outside for recess. Will we have recess? Yeah, maybe so. If the weather's good, get them outside. Take off the mask, spread out. So when I tell you, when they come back into school, why will this be harder? Well, can any of us as adults stay further than 6 feet in line at food line or at Lowe's? I mean, heck, half of us can't even stay 4 feet behind the front car at a red light. We always gear up on each other. If you don't think that's true, model your behavior and monitor it when you go home tonight. Just watch. As soon as you leave the parking lot, you'll be within 1 car length by the time you get to the stop sign. So in short, the mask has to be worn all the time. Who made that decision? That's above us. That decision comes right down from the state. You have to wear the mask the entire time, especially our employees, which there will be communication coming out to our employees to wear their masks all the time. I hear you, and I know I've received a few of your emails saying, hey, your teachers in professional development aren't wearing their masks. I'll get on it. But the key part about it is in class, the children are going to have to practice proper safety, which is good for all of us. So when they're sitting in class at 50% of the capacity, they should be 6 feet apart. So does that mean your child is going to actually sit in a room like a statue all day long? No. They're going to move. They're going to rotate. They're going to go to stations. But we're going to make sure that they're safe. Hands washed, hand sanitizer. We're going to make sure that the masks are comfortable. We just want to make sure that we understand what the guidance and rules look like to keep people safe. But here's a question that some of you sent and asked me. How many kids go to the bathroom at one time? Meaning, am I going to take a class of 10 kids, 6 feet apart, and spread them out 60 feet down the hallway? That's likely not going to happen. But right now, I don't know. We're still working on that. A lot of that's going to be the dynamics of the school building, because every one of our buildings is different. But in short, our adults are going to monitor our students to the best of their ability. To the best of their ability. But in terms of school nutrition, what does it look like? Our kids are going to eat breakfast and lunch every single day. We encourage it. We're going to provide for them. But it may not be in the cafeteria. It will likely be in their classroom, prepackaged, delivered to them in order to have a safe environment. How are we going to do that? With an amazing school nutrition team. If you ever get an opportunity to see one of our school nutrition assistants and that entire team, we've been feeding the community since March 16th, and bless them all. Bless them all for being on that front line and feeding all the way for the next few weeks before school starts. So if you ever get a moment, please congratulate them. But in short, our children will be fed. But what does a school day look like when you come into the building? And let's talk about it through the lens of a bus rider. So typical buses roll in the dark. And so the original guidance that came out said specifically that you would stop on the side of the road and take your temperature, or the bus driver would take the temperature of the child on the side of the road. And the original guidance said if your child had a 100.4 or greater temperature, then in fact, the child cannot get on the bus. But we as a school system are still responsible for getting them home safely. But be mindful, the bus driver cannot exit his or her seat if the bus is engaged. So the child has to come on the bus and take the temperature anyway. So, although this may or may not be popular, and having personally been hit from behind by another car, I had a literal fear of stopping a bus at 6 a.m. in the pitch dark on the curb trying to pick up kids and take somebody's temperature and hope the rest of the public would stop. And so every child's going to get on the bus. If they have a mask, great. Please have a mask. If they don't have a mask, I want to give them a mask. But specifically, they're going to have an attestation form. They're going to have a form that you sign. Every child's going to have a form that you sign, whether it's a bus rider, car rider, walker, dropped in by airplane, either one, they're going to have a form. And on that form are all the COVID questions, just like you had at the front door here today. That's going to be the new routine. That's the new normal. That is exactly what we're being asked as a school system to ask every single child, every single adult, everybody, all of us included. You took my temperature coming in, right? So the key part about it is all the children who are at the bus stop are getting on the bus, one per seat. Now the original guidance told us every 6 feet, which would have meant in a 72 passenger bus with social distancing, I would have been able to put 8 kids on the bus, which meant I would have had to spend $1.4 million more to try to figure out how to get everybody to school. And so we sent our data to the state and asked them to reconsider this. And with many school districts really in a pickle, the state came back and said, 1 per seat unless you're family members. Well, I hope your family really enjoys each other, they can sit together. But considering that puts 24 people on the bus, that's it, 24. However, if one of those children medically cannot wear a mask because of any healthcare issue that is written with the doctor's note, then of course we have to spread everyone around that student, so you'll have less than 24. So when you pull up to the school, that's when the driver will turn and take temperatures of each person. And at 100.4, they step off, or below 100.4, they step off with their form and go to the door at the drop-off at the school. And they'll hand their form signed by you as the guardian or parent. And that's their ticket into the building. All the same questions, like I said, that were asked at the front. So then you would say to me, Cheeseman, Matthew, what happens if my child has 100.5? fresh, we're going to take the temperature again. I'm just being honest. We're going to take that temperature again. But if it's 100.5, the driver's going to communicate with someone inside the building or outside who greets the bus. And every single school has an isolation room, and the student's going to go to the isolation room. And you're going to be contacted to come get your child in some way, shape, or form. To create a plan to come get your child, which is really important to plan in advance. Now, I'm blessed to be your superintendent, but I'm also a dad. I'm also a dad who has to go to work every day. And I would lie to you if I don't know the drug and drop game. Meaning that when my daughter was 5 or 6, and at 6 in the morning, if she had a mild fever and I gave her children's Tylenol, and I know the fever came down just before school started, I had to go to work. And I'm a horrible father. I get it. And I know I had until about noon before they would call me. I get it. I get it. Please don't do that. You're dealing with a different circumstance now. You're dealing with COVID-19. But the other part of that too is not every fever is COVID-19. So let's not treat it like it is. So if the child has a fever or the adult has a fever, let's not broadcast it on billboard somewhere. Let's be really thoughtful about the feelings of families and students. But then you would ask me, as you did in written format, are we going to know if there's a positive case inside the school? Maybe so. Meaning that if your child is in a room where there is a positive case, you as the family inside of that room is going to know through a letter or a communication that comes home that says, please be advised that a child within that classroom is tested positive for COVID-19, or an adult inside that classroom. It's likely going to say that there was a COVID positive. Now, are you going to be notified anytime there's a fever? No, because not every fever is COVID-19. And so considering that, we are going to communicate with you. Even more so, the health department may be communicating with you even more closely around positive cases. So I really need you to think through this for a moment, and you don't have to answer. But does anyone think that there's never going to be a COVID case in any of our buildings? Think through this. So we're really trying to figure out what are the protocols, and always know that by law, I can't share other people's medical information with you. Heck, half the time I don't know all of the details. Typically, health officials know. I just know that there may be a positive case. So what are we going to do? Like, for example, what if the child tests positive? What are we going to do in that room? Well, you're all going to be notified. And clearly, we're going to make sure we clean the room to the best of our ability. The other part of that too is a lot of dynamics that we have to work through. So considering that, yes, we're going to be really thoughtful about cleaning our buildings. For example, on Wednesdays, all of our employees will still come to work on Wednesdays when all of our children are remote learning. Notice I didn't say home. And notice I didn't say off. It's when they're in remote learning, which means wherever you feel as though you need to put them other than our school building to be successful, and I'm sorry. But the key part about that is we're going to try to deep clean our building to the best of our ability. We're going to deep clean our buses. And think through that. Every time that we run a bus, at the end of the day, we're going to have to clean the bus to the best of our ability. So there are so many other protocols now, and I'm talking not just sweeping the bus, and not just sweeping the classroom. I'm talking really utilizing COVID-19 approved chemicals, COVID-19 approved solutions to do our due diligence. So moving forward, in between all of that, there's teaching and learning inside of the building. We expect a high quality education for your students, and our teachers are going to be ready for it in any capacity. You may have heard me say that before. But the other part of that too is what I need you to understand is it would be an improper thought to assume that 100% of our employees are coming back. It would be an improper thought to assume that 100% of our employees are coming back. Meaning that I understand the statistics of children, and many of you continue to send it to me. I get it. But very few people in the community send me statistics on adults. And those adults with underlying health conditions, who are the bus drivers, who are the school nutrition assistants, who are your educators who are very close to retiring, who have heart issues, diabetes, asthma, former stroke victims, fighting off cancer, whatever it might be. So there are dynamics inside of the school system that some people just don't talk about in public. It might scare you. But the reality of it is, we are also trying to honor our adults who are our employees who love your children. Meaning, how do we help them still stay employed if they can't come to work because they need accommodations? Maybe it's a pregnancy. Maybe it's a recent surgery. Maybe it's a battle where the doctor says, you need to stay home with the employee says, no, I really want to go to work. I love these children. We're having those circumstances. So please keep that in mind if you have your teacher who's assigned to you, and you think, gosh, that seems like a new person in the building this year. Well, we have hired new people. But at the same time, we have a substitute list of almost 350 people, and nearly half of that sub list right now is saying no. So before you leave today, please sign up as a substitute. We're going to need you. But the key part about that is we have to think about our adults too. And I know that's hard to hear, but it's my job to keep people safe to the best of my ability. So in short, either way, it's going to be hard. And I'm sorry, this is going to be the best that we can possibly give it. And we're going to give a great education in any capacity to our students. But we need our community to pick up the phone, hop on the email, talk directly with our teachers, talk directly with the school counselors, talk directly with principal, AP, call us. We really need to establish a greater working relationship, even more so back in the spring. It's going to be harder now. Many of you are back at work. Many of you are in different places. It's going to be harder. So before I turn this over to you to ask questions, there's one item that I really feel obligated to talk about. Even more so because as a team behind me knows, it hits home to me. We need to talk about your wellness. Your This is going to be a challenge. That your words will travel further than your physical body ever will. They will. Phone, text, by social media, whatever you say. We need to really look at each other as a community and build a community of wellness. Meaning that start talking with other parents. Look out for each other's students. Look for warning signs because things are different. I know our kids have been home 23 weeks by the time they start school again. That's hard. I know some of them who used to love reading don't read as much now. I know some of them who used to communicate with you directly don't as much now. But what I'm going to ask you to do is build that community of wellness. Meaning, for you as the adult engaging your student, also please continue to ask questions about what went on at school today. Continue to ask your students whether there is something that they felt successful about. Please stop asking your kids, how was school? Please engage them. Talk with them. Learn from them. Don't ask yes or no questions. Look right at your children and say, tell me about a time today where it really makes you feel nervous in class, whether it's online or whether it's in session. Look at your students and really ask them, tell me about a time today where you helped someone else. We need our children to open up to you. Because in terms of wellness, we also need our adults to be ready. Because this is going to be hard. I request and advise and recommend, whatever word I could say, is to be deliberate with your words with your children. This is the hardest moment that they've ever endured. And it is with you too, to do it together. Because what we're starting to see is since March, we're watching adults just melt down. I see it in Walmart, I see it at Food Line, I see it at the gas station, I see it at the traffic light, I see it at the bank. We all just need to take 4 seconds. And please do that with your children. Remember, if you look at your children and you say, I don't believe in this online stuff, they won't either. And if you look at your children and say, he doesn't know what he's talking about, they'll never believe in that teacher again. And know that Beaufort County Schools has the best teachers in the state of North Carolina and the greatest teacher assistants. And I'm qualified to say that because I've been in multiple places in North Carolina, Illinois, California, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, not running from the wall, just like to get around a little bit. But the key part about it is I'm here and I love it here. Hug your children, read to your children. 20 minutes a day, give them 1 million words by the end of the year. Allow remote learning to become your new normal. Sit with them with that computer. You don't have to understand a lick of it. Sit down and ask them to explain it. Ask them to specifically talk about their work and what's hard and what's great. And please introduce into your vocabulary and your toolkit, tell me why. Look at your children. Ask your teachers. Ask your employees. Ask each other. And if you look at them and say, how was your day today? And they say, great, turn around and say, tell me why. We need to have greater conversation to build a community of wellness. And you would ask yourself, why is he talking like this? I thought he was going to talk about school. I am talking about school. And so I really need your help in the community to make sure that you're ready, our students are ready for whatever happens. Because quite frankly, coming after Labor Day, who knows where we'll be? The governor could come back and make a decision. Who knows where we'll be after Thanksgiving? The governor could come back with DHHS and make another decision. Your expectation of us to be ready on that moment's notice, I think that's realistic. We're going to be ready if that happens. But please know, we're going to give the best education to your student, and even more so, every adult in Beaufort County Schools has committed to giving their best. Even though those adults who have to stay on remote work to try to do their best for your students. So considering, I've tried to answer some questions in advance. I'd love to entertain some of your questions. Please know, we might say we don't know right now, and we may have to come back to you on a few of those. But just know, we're ready and we're going to give it our best. So with that, who would like to come to the microphone? Please come on down. We're asking you to do that so those watching live can hear it and those in the back can hear it. You're welcome to take your mask off. I'm 6 feet away from you.
Thank you. Got some notes here, and some of the things you've addressed, and so I'm going to stick to my notes because I just want to do this. My name is Brandy Holland, and I'd like to make a few brief comments before I ask 3 specific questions. I'm a graduate of Northside, first class, right here. I have a son who just graduated from here. I have a son that's going to be a junior here. I also have my youngest child is Lawson. He's going to be in 6th grade. He is going to be attending Terracia Christian, which is where I teach. I was a long-term sub at Northeast the spring before last, and did not get an opportunity to further that position there. But I landed a position at Terracia, and so that's
Congratulations. That's awesome.
I love it there. So my point in all of that is to let you know that I do still have a child that is here. I'm a product of the public education. My mom, who's sitting back there, retired from teaching here in Beaufort County.
Congratulations.
From Northside.
Great.
So we are devoted to the public school, and our roots are deep here. So after the vote last week, I was quite upset, and I decided to call the board members who had voted to do the modified Plan B rather than going back to face-to-face from the beginning of school. And in those conversations that I had with them, which I thank them for talking, I met one of my Terry's back there somewhere. So I thank them for their time talking And what I learned from them is that their biggest concern with going back face to face on August 17th were the details that go into that. Primarily the transportation, which you addressed, but that was their big concern. Only one board member that I spoke with seemed to be more concerned with COVID-19. And so to me, what that was saying is that they were just too nervous to let the kids come back without all the things being tied up with a pretty little bow on it. As you stated earlier, y'all found out on Saturday that we weren't coming back to school, and in a whirlwind, you got kids fed and you got remote learning up and running in less than a week. So with knowing that we would want to have to go to online potentially, or plan B, since we've known that since at least June, I felt like our board members weren't necessarily giving our teachers and employees enough credit to be able to pull that off. So that was my concern with that. So have we ever had a school year when we've been completely ready? No. There have been kids that didn't get picked up on
You're a teacher, right?
I am a teacher. So we haven't had a situation where every single detail has been worked out from day one of school.
Sure.
So, considering all that, I'll get to my 3 questions. Some of them kind of.
One at a time. One answer on
Okay. All right. So if the board members who had these concerns about starting face-to-face, if they were to get the information that they were seeking about transportation and how Plan B will work for face-to-face, would they consider going back to the August 17th? And if not, what kind of assurances can we get that we will go back in 4 weeks? Obviously, unless the governor demands Plan C for everybody.
Yeah, so let's talk about that for a moment. You know, I've been married for 24 years and I had one wedding proposal and I could never go back and redo it. My wife's already had that experience, even though I thought of all different things since I've been married for 24 years. I thought, wow, I should have taken her to, Hawaii to do it. I should have taken her somewhere else to do it. It's already done. And so considering that, meaning in those moments, I should have had the resources to make those decisions for that type of proposal well in advance, right? So to go back to something that you said is, sure, I've known since June that I should have Plan A, B, or C coming. However, what resources are tied to that? And so, yes, I know something is coming, but I didn't necessarily know what resources. But here's the key, and I took notes, so I forgot to bring paper, but here's the key. I give our Board of Education a lot of credit. There are not a lot of boards who go 5-4. Well, NOR went 4-3 last night on remote learning for 9 weeks, only to bring back K2 after 9 weeks on staggered start, and 3-12 indefinite right now in remote learning. So I'm really excited to see that our board had dialogue with each other, had good exchange, and had some energy. But here's a few things. It's my job as a superintendent to provide them information. And that falls on my shoulders. Nobody else in this room, not even the people behind me. And I provided the Board of Education with the information as I've received it through written format, in emails and conversations, in presentations, text messages, and phone calls, whatever it may be. As on one of those 8 superintendents, the State Superintendent Association is interested. So I had a lot of first-hand knowledge coming. And much of that knowledge coming back was, hey, we're still waiting for DHHS. The other part of it is, even as of Friday before their vote last Tuesday, we were still getting new guidance coming from the state about letting our way forward document in terms of what changes were happening. Remember, if this board initially would have voted back when the first edition of that guidance dropped, they would have to go back and hear a whole new thing. Bus transportation guidance changed, classroom has changed, all sorts of things. The key part about it is if the board goes back, here's new information. Well, I work for the pleasure of the board. My job is to give them that information, ask additional questions, and ultimately provide a recommendation to them. And then they ultimately vote on it. So there is no way, just like in my proposal, I would guarantee 100% that she would say yes. I prayed every day. She did. But the key part about it is, I would never look at or anyone else and say, yes, the board would definitely come back on September 14th. That would be very improper of me, knowing that yesterday in Beaufort County School, or Beaufort County, we had 36 new COVID cases in one day alone. But back in June, if the board would have voted, several of our families would have said, please go back and vote again. Because back in June, well, actually from March, April, and May, and check my statistics, and this is just trying to be a 48-year-old remembering, but Beaufort County really had a low amount of cases for a long time. So much so that we were saying, let us open up Plan A. And so in every phone call, Zoom call, whatever meeting I had, people all around us were saying, we're going to have to do Plan C. I'm staring at people saying, we're going to do Plan A. We don't have any cases here. And then it started. And then about 4 weeks ago in a board meeting, when I asked for a $1.1 million approval of technology in two different circumstances at the 300,000 and 700,000 approval, well, almost 800. The key part about that was I said to the board straight up, we would just drop from 33 active cases to 19. So although your cases are going up, your active cases are going down, people are recovering. And then honestly, Brandon, people started to die. And then most recently, we went from 19 to over 120 in a matter of 4 or 5 weeks. And so that catches the attention. So I recognize that in the public setting, a lot of people are looking at our cases and you're looking at statistics for students and you're looking at statistics for adults in some regard. But also I'm looking at what's the cost of transportation. For example, are you aware, anyone aware, that for our bus drivers or the remote learning, if you don't drive the physical yellow bus, I can't pay you from the state line item. So that means that has to come out of your local pocket. So now I have to look for funding just to make sure we're secure. I can't, because you don't know that, and I wouldn't expect you to know that. But there are dynamics that you may not see behind the scenes that are happening to us that we're really trying to still solve. And so in short, our board was extremely thoughtful about paying every single employee last spring. And that money went right back into our economy, right here locally. And so I applaud them for that. But that's also because we had a funding package come down from the government that helped us with that, which right now we don't perceive that type of package coming back. And so in short, and just to finish, the board could come back to the table. Keep in mind that we're already starting to plan for what remote looks like. And for anyone in the room to think that if the board suddenly voted next Tuesday night to go back into Plan B, you have an awful lot of employees who are going to have to shift gears. And then the expectation of our community is that they're going to have to be ready on the very first day and shifting those gears. There's a lot of dynamics. So I can't say it's impossible, but I'm saying it's going to be extremely challenging.
Because you have to plan for online remote learning anyway, because there are people who would still have that option regardless. So
Sure.
both plans have to be prepared.
Right, which makes double the work, triple the work, quadruple the work. Remember, Brandon, you started this conversation by saying, chief guy, I'm a teacher.
Yeah.
So I know. And so if it's really that easy for you, I'm welcome you to apply to both, but we'd love to hire you.
No, it's not. And I had one board member tell me that he'd love to have me back in River County.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much. I'm pretty happy where I am. So for the face-to-face, if and when that's allowed, prayerfully for me in 4 weeks, will schools be able to figure out within the guidelines where it's 6 feet apart, it's not the 50% anymore, correct?
It tends to be based off of the capacity of your social distancing. 60.
So-
Translation for those people in the room, it's not 50%. It's based off of the room. for the kids to be of how you can spread them out. And be mindful, none of our rooms are identical across the district. There is variation. But
So considering that,
Mhm.
that very thing, would schools be able to figure out individually, or does it have to be district-wide, if school A can do it this way and school B can't quite do it that way? Do schools have the flexibility to do what they can do to get kids back in on a face-to-face basis more often than possibly just the 2 days?
Sure. So there are schools such as Southside High School, Northside High School, Snowden Elementary, Tuckerley Primary School, and if you manipulate the pre-K and Northeast Elementary School, that technically have 100% of their students are below the 50% capacity of the building. So you're asking me, can they all come? And so essentially I'm saying to you, no. I presented Plan B to the board specifically around the 50% rule, even though the governor and DHHS and DPI came back and said, the density of the capacity. A lot of times people think that the room has nothing else in it. Meaning that specifically, you look at a map, but you don't take into consideration the bookshelves, the teacher stations, the anchor charts, that aquarium that's up on the side, whatever it is. And so in short, you literally have to go in the rooms and measure them. You literally have to go in the room and move the furniture. And so Spencer Peak and Lynn Whittington did a fantastic job. I went over and watched the outcome of this, or looked at the outcome, and they were able to get 24 seats in the room. So then, Brandy, I really think about equity rules. And I think to myself, does my daughter get to go to school because of her zip code, when other kids, because of their zip code and the age of their building, can't go to school? And so that is something that you really have to pay close attention when you're talking about governance and legalese. And so although I'd love to stack every child into the classroom and flip spaces and utilize them to the best of our ability, I'm not certain that I feel confident that a zip code and a building would determine whether they get to go in there. And so on the other side of that too is, how do I support, meaning the district, all of the different variations that are going on from school building to school building to school building? And even more so, again, a lot of people are saying to me, well, Matthew, we can get 24 kids in that classroom. And I'm going to look at you and say, are you certain the teacher's coming back? And so there's so many variations to that. Now also, Brady, is maybe I can bring 100% of the kids here, or excuse me, maybe I can house 100% of the kids, but I can't put them all on the bus. So if I have to do double runs in the morning and double runs in the afternoon, I'm going to need help with nearly $700,000 more to do that. We have studied it. We have cried over it. And so I love your thinking. We're right there with you. But in this moment, I can't support that. And I can't support that just in terms of equity for our children to the best of our ability. And I'm not certain, without county commissioner support and or another funding package from the state, I could look at any one of you and ask you to give me $1.4 billion more than what you just said is happening. I just can't do it.
Okay, the final question is for online learning.
Sure.
So you've talked a lot about I'm going to call it real time. Like if you have a class at 8 o'clock, you're online at 8 o'clock, if you're able.
Sure.
I've heard you repeat that
If
several
you're
times.
able.
So if you are, if teachers are going to be, if every teacher in the building is on broadband internet, and you've got multiple students in a family at home, they're all trying to get on that one hotspot or on their, if they've got broadband at home. What happens if and when that goes wrong? And we know it will because technology is very imperfect.
Sure.
It's great when it works. What happens to the children if their system glitches out and they aren't able to get that teacher's lecturing or explanation of things? Will there be recordings of things that they can go back to? And if during these first few weeks, especially of the online learning, if children are having difficulties with that, then how will their grades be impacted by they have an opportunity to maybe come back and say, well, I had technical issues, I'm really struggling with this assignment. Will there be opportunities so that they won't fall further behind because they're trying to do this online?
So I'm going to ask Ms. Lowe to answer some of these questions, but before I hand you the microphone, this is what I want to say to you. We're an institution of education. Our job is to educate kids. I never want the off button to stop people from learning. Just like when your car breaks down, we got to get some urgency to fix it, right? Maybe call AAA right away. So we're
So
going
now
to
that parking lot, I've had to do it.
noted it. I've got my AAA card on me. So the key part about that is we need to go back to the communication piece. If families are frustrated with their technology, we need to know immediately so we can make plans. There are very special people that we work with who may even come right to your house to try to help you. We want to do well for our children. But in terms of all of the questions that you asked, let me just start by saying, Andrea Lilly is our Chief Academic Officer. And she and her team have just been so remarkable about, especially last spring. We want to talk about getting everything up online. This is an amazing team. And just so you have knowledge, other districts around us continue to call us and to see how we're doing it. Because we believe we're doing it the best that we can. So considering that, so if you want to give an overview.
Good evening. First off, we are recording everything, so if a student could not get on during that particular time, they would have the opportunity, when they could to get on. If they fall behind, teachers will be calling, that's in their expectation. And to touch base with the parents to see what's going on, if they can give them any assistance. We will conduct everything with grace and generosity throughout. And as long as, if they need any technical assistance, we're going to have a help desk open for parents and students that they can contact us. We have a phone number, we have also an email form, and that's going to be a person on the staff at each school. And of course, they can contact the district office at any time as well. Did I answer everything?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your thoughts. Thoughtfulness. COVID update, 131 cases. Just came in. What other questions do you have?
Hi, first I want to say thank you to all the teachers, board members for your time and everything, helping our students, especially what we said. My name is Stacey Brooks. My daughter is going to be a senior at Northside High School this year. And first of all, I'm not just speaking for her because she's 17. She did online before. She did okay. Did she do as well as I wanted to? Because I think face-to-face is the best choice for her to guide. But I'm standing to speak for parents or where I was a couple years ago with Haley. That's why I love teachers, because I'm not a teacher, never wanted to be a teacher. So I'm 100% to the teachers, because it ain't it. My first question moving forward is what is the difference and what will be different in 4 weeks? Why not now? You keep saying 4 weeks and then we'll start. Why not now? For us that choose to have face-to-face. I again speaking for my daughter, safety is number one. My daughter has been working the whole time with a mask in a public grocery store. So has my son. So we decided we'll be safe, we'll stay 6 feet apart, we're not letting this virus stop my life. So I want to know what's different in 4 weeks as opposed to right now.
All right, so specifically, there are some dynamics in our school system that we're still working with, and I'll explain a few of those. 4 weeks gives us a little bit more time in terms of what it looks like inside of our schools, in terms of the setup. Remember, educators don't actually have to come back based on their contract until August 10th. We may need a little bit more time for our professionals to really understand the dynamics of what their school and understand the dynamics of what the classroom should look like, including professional development to even help some of them from learning. The other part of that too is it gives us an opportunity to really figure out transportation. For example, people in the room assume that you have enough bus drivers, meaning we have 101 yellow buses that run. We can possibly put another 13 into the fleet, right around 114 if I remember correctly. But you do not have 114 bus drivers. Again, anyone leaving today who would like to sign up to help us with driving a bus, see Jerry Wynn right there. And I'm 100% serious. There are dynamics that we understand in order to get children to school that we have to have in place, and that's part of it. And the key part about that is some parents will say, well, if the child can't get to school, just put them on remote learning. That's not possible, meaning by law, they have the right to come to the school if I'm running bus service in the first place. So I need to make sure what those double runs, triple runs might look like. The other part of that too, and quite frankly, we're still looking at our teachers and we're still looking at our personnel, including our teacher assistants, of who's coming back. What most people in the community don't realize is that when we surveyed our personnel, 83.6% of our personnel said that they wanted to come back. So where's the other 16%? And what does that look like and who does it impact? So we're still working with our personnel in that regard. The other part of that too is, I'll go back to your substitute list. So when personnel doesn't show up and I need to hire an adult to be there, we're still working with those individuals directly to see who's committed to coming. There's dynamics around school nutrition in terms of how we're going to feed, because our schools used to cook. And you may have had some of those meals yourself, but there's a whole new idea of how we're going to package and how to deliver. Those are dynamics we're still working through. But honestly, whether you agree or disagree, we're an educational institution that is funded by state, federal, and local government. And for me to make very specific decisions with our team to give the Board of Education the knowledge they need to have in order to vote, then I need to have some of that knowledge myself, meaning our funding. As I said here tonight, if I'm going to have to double run and triple run, I'm looking at 700 to almost 1.4 million. That is a concern when your fund balance is 1.1. So there's health and safety, there's personnel, there's fiscal, there's nutrition, and there's transportation. They all got to come together in a sense that then the board can look at me and say, Matthew, we believe you got it now. And I'll own that. And quite frankly, in the vote the other night, no one voted no because they don't want kids in school. They voted no because they didn't think we had the conglomerate together to make the rock that we needed. And that's where we are, still working feverishly behind the scenes. So I'm blessed that the board says, you know what, we think you're close. We think you're really close to this. So let's not do 9 weeks, let's do 4. But we also don't want to just bounce it down onto our parents, 3 days before September 14th. We're really trying to get these decisions together for Labor Day so people know, so they can contact their employers, they can work with their child care agents, whatever it might be. So I would like you to look through the lens, if possible, that 4 weeks actually may be a blessing for us versus an automatic 9.
We're not the governor, so this is not really a question.
Thank
But
you.
I wish, but I wish the governor would have thought about remediation. And
Sure.
we weren't ready for this time, use the 4 weeks for remediation for some of our students that definitely needed it. To maybe give you more time to take care of the things that you need to take care of. That way, some parents would see what some of the online stuff would look like.
Sure. What I can tell you is, I'm not in the ability or have the ability to weigh in on politics. And I watch TV, I listen to news like you do. And unfortunately, sometimes politics gets mixed in with science. And I understand that.
Right.
But with the knowledge that we're given, we do the best that we can. So I appreciate that.
My second question, do you know the other counties that went remote, are they doing real time also?
I could survey them. I actually had a meeting with the superintendent in this region.
If you could put that out on social media or somehow, I'd like to know that, because that's one of my main concerns is the real time. Speaking again for my daughter, she did well. I'll say she did okay. Did she do well? Great. No, she did okay. But that's because of her age and her maturity.
Sure.
but the real time wouldn't have worked as well for her as in situations where maybe she's stronger in the afternoon than stronger in the morning, and she had to add the things up online for her. Which is one of my concerns. It's not really a question, but my concerns within the real time, as like I said, looking back for a couple years myself, being a working parent, I wouldn't want to have to give up. I would give up a little family time to be able to sit with my child instead of my babysitter, daycare, or whoever I have to place my child with, to be able to sit there and maybe change school from 4 to whatever until having to rely on somebody else that is my child. I raised my child. I'm responsible for my child to have the one to be set for structure for a younger child. My third question is, how about the child that doesn't do well online? And I look at this 4 weeks as the children that didn't do well last time online, having to do online again. They're already behind. You're putting them 4 more weeks behind with this. So is there anything for those kids that do not do well online?
First of all, the governor did not give us Plan A option. Plan A is the least restrictive, brings everybody back. Many school districts are going Plan C, all online. This is where the communication piece is really going to come into play. Meaning that as parents, guardians, aunts, uncles, whoever it might be of our children, we're going to have to communicate with our teachers and our school site personnel very closely, daily if possible. I know Ms. Gibbs is here, and we talked about our DC division, and I understand that specifically we're looking at all kids, trying to be inclusive in terms of the support that we give them. But typically at home, with the partnership of the teacher, you'll be able to see, and having been a teacher for 14 years, you'll be able to see when they're being successful and when they really have a struggle. And that's why I go back to the questions that just please don't ask our children if they had a good day. You know, ask them to explain things to you. But since our buildings are open in a way that they were not open previously, you should be able to get in contact with people at the school, either by phone, even if you come to the school and ask to come in and speak with someone in a social distancing manner, so you'll have opportunity. So I just don't want anyone to think so that the lifeline is cut off. It's not. It's really going to come down to what are those supports that you're asking for? What are those needs? And not just in those 4 weeks, because when we come back to Plan B, your student may still have 60% of remote learning. So we're really going to need a set-aside-based plan to do.
My comment to that is if it's real time and everything, I'd much rather be able to see my child watch her do her, and I won't say my child, but even the younger children, as a parent, watch her that, than her have to go 8 to 3, and then when I get home from work, drill her or look back at herself and try to see. And you're coming and reaching out to the teachers. My son's already graduated. Haley's a senior. I've been through it however many years it is. I've had no problem reaching out to a teacher and have had wonderful teachers respond back to me. So that's not something that I'm concerned about at all, is reaching out to a teacher. What I'm concerned about is a child sitting there from 8 to 3 following the same structure, because what we're doing now here is we're changing their location. And I understand that for their safety, but we've been dealing with COVID since March. Our numbers have gone up, numbers have gone down. The governor was on the phone today saying some of the numbers are going back down, but still use your mask and use everything in social distance. So, I mean, we waited for March, we're here the 1st of August. Are we going to keep waiting and let our child's education suffer? Because everybody's education did suffer last time due to no fault of us, it's for our virus. I just don't want a virus to take over and control my life.
Sure, I understand. So let me just address something real quick. So again, I'm a parent, very similar to you, and I have to ask those questions to my child when I get home from work. But also remember that we have nearly 1,000 employees in both the county schools, 600 teachers, roughly. And so considering that, their work environment, their work schedule, the bell schedule of the school. School starts in the morning and ends mid-afternoon. And so in order for us to flip that classroom, I'd have to have 100% of these people working time. So part of the dynamic that you're talking about, we have thought about. Well, I'm just not going to be able to manipulate it in that kind of way.
Well, the students that are in school, and this is just opinion, like everybody has one, and I don't know all the answers. If they're in school face-to-face, that choose that Monday and Tuesday, face-to-face with the student, and the parents are responsible Thursday and Friday. And I understand structure and I understand real time, but I'm also the flip side of a student that may not do as well online, and that saw her do better because she could do it at her own time or do it when I was around or her brother was around to help her with some things.
Sure.
So like Monday and Tuesday, okay, I get that she's here face to face and running that same schedule. The structure is very important to a child, but then you're saying, here parents, we're doing everything we can, and I understand that as you are, but then you're leaving it to the parents Thursday and Friday who cannot. And I said there's a large majority, as you know, that can't be with their student, and are going to have them at Grandma Sally's and whoever.
Correct.
That if it could be recorded, or parents could have a choice to maybe not just do real time or have it recorded or whatever, that we could choose on Thursdays and Fridays. Okay, maybe you could study some, or you could have your free time, and then when the parent got home just 2 days a week, they could work with their child and see that up front, other than giving my responsibility for my child to somebody else to teach them structure. Because I had that child. I wanted that child to have that child. I'm responsible for that child. So I don't want to put off my responsibilities on somebody else.
No, I appreciate your thinking. Thank you.
Okay? And bottom line, again, thank you, everybody. 100%. I did vote. I wanted everybody back in school, but I was disappointed, and I reached out to every one of the board members. I got it was a very kind email. One or two of you reached back out for me and appreciated my email. And I wanted to plan B, because I wanted, as a parent, as a working parent, because I don't even want to bring up children that have back home lives that needed to be away from home to get that love and care from a teacher face to face or things like that. Because like you mentioned, it is a stressful time. They are scared. And I will say this, I just want you to consider hiring more school counselors. I realize budget and everything, but money's not anything compared to our children that are stressed out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other questions?
Can I ask one for Debbie here?
Sure.
Where did you get your numbers that said that, did you say 111 new cases?
No, ma'am. It says 131, not new, active.
Okay,
So, hold on.
because for today, according to one of our county commissioners, Baker County has only 11 new cases.
Correct. 11 new cases.
In the hospital.
Perfect. So we're reading from the same thing. 11 new cases, making your current active cases 131.
Okay,
That's
I
the
thought
number.
you said new cases, so you were just saying active.
I'm sorry. If I said that, I mean current active cases 131.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem. Which, be mindful, about 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks ago, the active cases were at 19. So there's some behaviors there that would come down a little bit. Other questions, thoughts, worries, concerns that you'd like to share with us? Sure.
What is Northside's back to school private training? Are we by alphabet or are we by grade?
Principal?
Hi, President here at Northside. Right now, I sent messages that we are going freshmen and sophomore go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we're all out for work, Thursday, Friday.
I have, excuse me.
Oh, wait, I got it, I did have it, I'm sorry. Juniors and seniors are Monday, Tuesday, sophomore, freshman, Thursday, Friday, but I do want to make it explain. we may have to relook at that based off of numbers, and there are, I've had some parents call that have multiple students that I can work with. Mr. Clark called me today, there may be some childcare issues, we will work with those. That would be great.
That is what I want you to reconsider. I have two seniors and a junior, so this doesn't affect me at all. But Northeast and Mac Elementary, beginning of this school, the older siblings are there, they care, they're going to watch the younger siblings are at those two schools. So we're going after that, and we're doing it at grade level. Those children don't have anybody to watch it. If you do it by alphabet, like those two schools are doing, then that pressure from those parents can figure out who's going to watch their children, their siblings.
And we've got to sit to tomorrow and discuss that, no matter what way you do it, whether you do it by grade level or alphabet, you're still gonna have issues.
Yes, you're gonna have some issues, I know that eventually, but I think you'll have that.
Yeah, but
Just
either way, we have those issues. Mr. Park and I talked tonight, we will make decisions. They will go.
Other questions, thoughts, worries? You can come down front. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here tonight. Please feel free to reach out to us if you have further questions that you think of beyond this evening. We will also have another parent forum at Southside High School on August 6th, which I invite you also to attend if possible. And again, please be safe in any type of weather that we may be having outside at this moment. And I really appreciate all of you being here tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.